The New Orleans Pelicans came into this year with extremely high expectations, and in the beginning of the year, it looked like they were going to take those expectations and really start to put them into action, as they were the number one seed in the Western Conference for a very short period of time. But unfortunately, shortly after that, injuries started piling up and things just started going wrong, and they started to really roll downhill. And unfortunately, they haven't really been able to recover since. And I'm basically going to be going over their entire season, the biggest things that have happened, and basically kind of recapping how the Pelicans have found themselves in the situation they are currently in. So to really start off, to get to where they started downfall, we have to get to where they at least got to the top of the hill at one point, as in December, the Pelicans found themselves as the number one seed in the entire Western Conference. There was Bleacher Report talking about it. There's a lot of people talking about it because they're a very young team. They're now the number one seed. They started off just the last season like 1-12, I'm pretty sure. Like, it was a complete 360 from how they started the year just prior to this one, and they looked like one of the best teams all around in the NBA, as their defense and offensive efficiency was top 5. So they looked like they were a up-and-coming team. Very, very good. Now, although it probably was expected they wouldn't stay the number one seed, people probably assumed they would at least be above a play-in team, which would be a huge step forward in the right direction for a young Pelicans franchise. But pretty much ever since then, things have just kind of spiraled and gone downhill in a very, very fast manner, as shortly after that, Zion Williamson would go down with an injury in February, which still has him out to this day. He re-aggravated it just a few weeks ago, and now his timetable got pushed even farther back, and injuries have been a huge problem in Zion's career, and really a huge problem for the Pelicans as a franchise. And the reason this was such a big deal is because Brandon Ingram was also already out with an injury that they suffered from way earlier on in the season. So with both their best two players out, the Pelicans really started to kind of struggle in a very, very big way, as they went on an 11-game losing streak that started on the 16th of January and did not end until February 2nd, and it spanned 10 games. So they went on a huge losing streak. They couldn't even buy a basket. It was looking very bad. They dropped all the way into the play-in, and now they're even out of the play-in as of today, and they really just have not been able to really fully recover from that, as well as ever since they broke that losing streak, they have a record of 7-9, despite getting Brandon Ingram back in that time frame as well for most of those games. So unfortunately for them, they just cannot recapture the magic that they started off with, and that is very unfortunate. But the reason is mainly due to Zion's injury, because when Zion's there, they look like one of the best teams in the NBA, surprisingly also on defense, because Zion is not looked at as a great defensive player in any means, but this year he took a huge step forward in that direction, and really just the energy he really provided was a huge reason to why this team was so good. Now, they have had other pretty significant injuries as well. Larry Nance Jr. has missed significant times, and he is a very vital role player because he helps with versatility in games that Giannis kind of gets mismatched on because he's a little bit of a slower traditional big almost. Larry Nance Jr. can fill in usually, but with him being out, it really takes away a lot of versatility. And then you also have Jose Alvarado, who's a huge piece of this team on defense, especially very high energy. He's even missed a few games, and he never misses games. At least that's like his whole thing. And Jose has missed a lot of games, and that's really hurt the team energy-wise, and defensively, they just have not looked the same. And yes, they just beat the Houston Rockets and split a series, but I mean, it's also the Houston Rockets, and you also lost to them just a few days ago. So the Pelicans have not looked amazing at any stretch of the imagination, even since breaking that losing streak. And to show how important these injuries and how impactful they have been to the Pelicans this year, let's look at these things. CJ and Brandon Ingram have only played a total of 30 games together this season. CJ and Zion have only played 25 games together this season, and Brandon Ingram and Zion have only played 12 games together. So their two best players have only played 12 games. Their third best has barely even played 30, and then CJ and BI has also only played 30. So that is definitely not ideal. And then when you look at the big three together, how many games they played together, they have only played 10 games total together, and they have a record of 6-4. So they do have a winning record when the big three does play together. The problem is they literally never play together, and even their lineups with Brandon Ingram and Zion also have a winning record. So it's very obvious that when this team is healthy, they are a very good team. It's just they are never healthy, and there's a huge question mark to whether they ever will be healthy, because Zion basically has been injury prone since the coming into the league, and there's no reason to believe he won't be until he proves us otherwise. Brandon Ingram is another guy that does miss significant games pretty much every single year. year since coming to the Pelicans. And CJ McCollum is at least a healthy presence, and he's usually there for most games. But CJ is not a superstar, and he's not the guy that's going to win you games. He's just a guy that's going to help a lot, and he is going to win you some, but he's not going to win you enough at a high enough level to really make you a playoff team. And that is exactly why Brandon Ingram and Zion going down with injury is such a big deal. And that is pretty much the only reason for their downfall. Because if you really look at it, I mean, injuries, this team, even without Zion, this exact team was a play-in level team just the year before, and they don't even look like that. They have been extremely, extremely bad on both sides of the ball, and it just hasn't looked right. So, I mean, hopefully they can really put it together down the stretch. Hopefully Larry Nance can get fully back. Hopefully Jose Alvarado can get back. Hopefully they get Zion back before the playoffs, and they can really make a run at it, because I do think that fully healthy, this team can beat anybody in the playoffs, maybe outside of like the Phoenix Suns, fully healthy, or like the Milwaukee Bucks. But I think that they can beat pretty much any other team in the entire playoffs, no matter who they play. The problem is, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs because they've just been struggling that mightily and that heavily kind of down the stretch due to these injuries. So health is going to be the biggest thing, and that is by far the biggest reason to what has pushed them over the edge so far. But I do think if they get fully healthy, they can make a run, and they could be a very solid team. But unfortunately, guys, that's going to be for this video. So comment below. Do you agree with me? Do you think that the Pelicans could come back? Do you think this downfall is a little kind of overrated? Do you think that they can recover? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the point, hit the like button and subscribe button. I mean the absolute word to me, and I hope you have a blessed day, because I have a blessed day, so you need to have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.